Okay, so after finishing the Perceptions of Disabilities module in our PowerPoint presentations, I am going to answer the questions on the discussion board. So the first one was, what are your perceptions and experience with individuals with disabilities? And my perception of individuals with disabilities is that they are no different than other people. They still have a purpose in this life and world, and they shouldn't be treated any differently just because they were born differently. That's just the way I've always been taught growing up. But I do have a personal experience with someone with a disability. Her name is Haley, and she has Down syndrome, and she's one of the happiest people I've ever met. She's constantly laughing or making other people laugh. She loves meeting new people and giving them hugs, and she's super independent. She never wants you to help her. Every time you try, she's just like, no, I got it. And she just does everything that we do, and she is determined to do it by herself, and she refuses to ask for help. While she can't live by herself, she pretty much does normal things around the house that everyone else does. Like, she can dress herself, and she'll hold her foot up in the microwave by herself when she's hungry, and she can be most specific about what she wants, and if that's what she wants, she does not expect anything less than that. And I just love her so much. She's such a joy to be around. And my perception about disability matters as an educator, because if I'm not willing to treat them as any other person, then I feel like I shouldn't even be in the classroom. Every child comes to school to learn something, and if I'm not willing to meet the needs of that child, then I don't deserve a teaching degree. Because my goal in my classroom is for every child to go home saying that they learned something that day, no matter how big or small it is. Whether they learn to write their name or learn to write a full sentence with punctuation at the end. If one child left not learning anything, then I feel like I didn't do my job correctly. So that's just the way I feel as an educator. Eric's statement, society imposes low expectations to those who have disabilities. I definitely agree with this statement, because society puts people with disabilities into a stereotypic category of, oh, they can't do things like we can, and they tend to think less of them and assume that they'll never succeed in something because of it. However, I don't agree with society's viewpoint of it. One thing I learned from having experience with someone with a disability is that some of them are extremely smart, and they deserve to be challenged the way that you would challenge any other person with a high learning ability. There are multiple stories with people with disabilities achieving things in the IRIS module that we had to watch, and that just goes to show that many of them are capable of amazing things, and we shouldn't treat them any less than what they are. And we should hold them accountable for those things. If they can be challenged, then we should challenge them just like we would challenge any other student in the classroom. UDL stands for Universal Design of Learning, and it makes learning more accessible to all students. And this is important because it makes sure that every student has equal access to learning, no matter the disability. And it shows that not every student will learn the same way, and it's made to accommodate the lesson so that each student is able to grasp something from it. And it makes it so no student feels left out or behind while they're at school. Like I said before, every student comes to school to learn something, and they should be able to leave every day naming at least one thing they learned, no matter how big or small it is. Most college campuses are generally accessible and maintain an office specifically for disability services and support. However, 19% of young adults with disabilities in the longitudinal study mentioned in the IRIS module reported requesting and receiving accommodations in these post-secondary settings. By comparison of these young adults, 87% reported receiving accommodation and support during their time in school. What factors might contribute to these findings? I think one of the biggest differences is that when you're in high school, they're automatically required to give the students with disabilities accommodations, whereas in college you have to go to the disability office and request accommodations by providing documentation of your disability. And I think it can hinder a lot of this because some students with disabilities might be embarrassed and worried of being judged, so they choose to keep quiet about the accommodations they need to learn, which is really sad to think that we live in a world like that, where a student feels they can't learn to the best of their abilities because they're worried about what other people would think, and they feel like they need to come off to society as like the society's normal because of the world they grew up in. And that's really sad to think about, and it shouldn't be that way. Another thing is that maybe they don't realize what services are available to them. A lot of schools don't exactly advertise what disability service is, and if students don't know about it, how are they supposed to apply for it? So the pros and cons of the response to interventional module. I think the response to intervention model has a lot of good meaning behind it, but there are a few cons that come with it, just because there's cons that come with everything. And one of the cons that I named is some schools don't have the resources or trained teachers to be able to do it, and it also works better in some subjects than others, and some students might wait too long to get the right type of service for their learning. But there are a lot of pros to it, in my opinion, but I only named a few. So one of them was it helps kids with disabilities before they get too far behind. They're able to get to their learning style and figure it out, so that way they're able to learn just like any other person. And extra help is given to them so they're able to learn. That's also a very great thing to have. And teachers are able to track the students' progress so they can figure out what does and doesn't work, so that way you don't keep going back to the same thing that didn't work before because you forgot. You're able to track it and realize, okay, well, this didn't work for them, so maybe this will work. But overall, I think the response to intervention module is a great resource for students with disabilities.